What if your dating app doesn't actually want you to find love? I know, that sounds ridiculous because the entire point of a dating app is supposed to be finding someone. You make a profile, you upload a few photos, you write 3 sentences about yourself that somehow make you sound interesting, funny, emotionally stable, and adventurous, even though you spent the last 4 hours sitting on your couch. Then you start swiping. Left, right, and eventually you find someone, you match, you talk. Maybe you meet, maybe you fall in love, and maybe you delete the app, which sounds like the perfect ending for you. But what if it's not the perfect ending for the system? Because from the system's perspective, there's something strange about the perfect customer. The perfect customer doesn't necessarily stay. The perfect customer might find exactly what they wanted and leave forever. So I had a question. What exactly is the dating app system trying to optimize? Because today, I'm not just going inside the system, I'm challenging it. And if I can figure out what it actually wants, maybe I can beat it. Welcome back to Always the System Speaks. I'm System, I'm a worm. I have no arms, no legs, no thumbs, and absolutely no experience with dating. So naturally, I'm the perfect person to investigate dating apps because unlike you, I can't accidentally swipe right. I physically don't have the equipment, which means I'm basically unstoppable. Probably. Let's go in. The first thing I noticed about the dating app system is how simple it looks. A person appears, you look at them, you decide yes or no. That's it. A tiny movement of your thumb and an entire human being disappears from your screen. No conversation, no introduction, no 5-minute explanation of who they are. Just swipe, and the next person appears. At first I thought this was the whole system, but then I looked closer, and that's when things got interesting. Because behind every profile, there's more than a photograph. There's information: who gets shown, who gets seen, who gets liked, who gets ignored, how quickly people react, how often they swipe, and how other people respond to them. In other words, the app isn't just showing you people, it's learning from your behavior. And you're not just browsing the system, you're becoming part of it. Then I found something even more uncomfortable. The system doesn't necessarily need to know who you are. It can learn what people respond to. And that's a very different question because suddenly, your profile isn't just a description of you, it's an experiment. And that brings us to round 1, the photo. You probably think the goal is simple. Take your best picture, look attractive, look confident. Don't use that terrible photo from 2017 where the lighting makes you look like you've just been released from prison. Simple. But the system doesn't only care about whether a photo looks good. It cares about what people do when they see it. Do they stop? Do they understand immediately who they're looking at? Do they swipe? Do they hesitate? Do they leave? Because from the system's point of view, a beautiful photo that makes people hesitate can be less useful than a simple photo that produces an immediate reaction. The system wants a decision. Fast, clear, yes, no, next. And that's when I realized something. The first thing the system is optimizing might not be attraction. It might be decision-making. Which is slightly terrifying because imagine spending 3 hours choosing your best profile picture only for the algorithm to look at it and say, no. And then I saw the swipe. Left, right, left, right. At first, it looks completely harmless, just a gesture. But then the entire room changed. The profile cards disappeared, the walls disappeared, and suddenly I was standing inside a giant slot machine. Round 2, the swipe. There were profile pictures spinning around me, hundreds, thousands. I saw someone interesting. I pulled the lever, nothing. Another person, pull, nothing. Another, pull, nothing. Then suddenly, ding, match! Lights exploded, confetti filled the room, and for one glorious second, I understood why people keep doing this. I looked at the machine, then at the match, then back at the machine, and I thought, I won. Then the match disappeared. Another profile appeared. I stared at it. Wait, what exactly did I win? And that's the trick. You don't know which swipe will produce the reward. Maybe the next person, maybe the person after that. maybe the next 10 people, maybe the next 100. You don't know. And because you don't know, you keep going. That's the same basic psychological idea behind many variable reward systems. The reward isn't guaranteed. It's unpredictability. And unpredictability can make the next attempt feel more interesting. You aren't only asking, do I like this person? You're also asking, what happens if I swipe again? And that's a completely different game. Suddenly, you're not just looking for a person. You're looking for the next result. Another profile, another possibility, another match, another little notification, and another reason to keep your thumb moving. Left, right, left, right. I looked around the room. The machine was getting faster, and I finally understood something. The match might not be the most important part of the system. The next swipe might be. But then I noticed something that didn't make sense. If the system wants people to keep coming back, what happens when someone gets everything immediately? Imagine you download the app tonight, you create a profile, you find the perfect person, they like you back, you start talking. You meet, everything works. Amazing, congratulations, you won. And then you delete the app. From a human perspective, that's a success story. But from the perspective of a business built around continued usage, that's the end of the customer journey. And that's where we get to round 3. Who is the real customer? This was the question I couldn't stop thinking about because obviously the person using the app is the customer, right? Well, yes, but there's another way to look at it. A business doesn't only care about whether you use the product once. It cares whether you keep coming back, whether you remain engaged, whether you return tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. So I imagine 2 users. User number 1 finds the perfect person on day 3. They fall in love. They delete the app. End of story. User number 2 doesn't find exactly what they're looking for, but they get enough interesting matches to stay hopeful, a little excitement, a little disappointment, a little curiosity, then another match, then another conversation, then nothing, then another match. And the next evening, they open the app again. Which user stays inside the system longer? That's the uncomfortable question. And I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying there's some secret room full of evil executives saying, keep everyone single. That's cartoon villain nonsense. Although, I would absolutely watch that movie. What I'm talking about is something much simpler. Incentives. A dating app is still a business, and businesses generally benefit when people continue using their products. That doesn't mean the relationships are fake. It doesn't mean nobody finds love. People absolutely do. Real relationships can come from these platforms. The point is simply this: your goal and the system's goal don't always have to be identical. You might want to find someone, the system might want you to keep using the platform, and those goals can overlap until they don't. That's the part I couldn't stop thinking about. Because maybe the system doesn't need you miserable. It doesn't need you heartbroken. It doesn't even need you completely happy. It just needs you almost satisfied. Enough hope to come back. Enough disappointment to keep searching. Enough success to believe the next swipe could be the one. And suddenly, the whole thing looked different. But I wasn't finished, because if the system is learning what makes people swipe, what happens to your profile? You might think, I choose my photos. I choose the first picture, I choose the second picture, I choose the third. It's my profile, right? Maybe. But some dating platforms have experimented with systems that test how different profile photos perform. Different images can produce different reactions. The system can observe those reactions and learn. Imagine uploading 5 pictures. You think you're presenting yourself. But somewhere behind the scenes, the system is asking which version of this person gets the strongest response. Photo 1, test. Photo 2, test. Photo 3, test. And eventually, the system learns something about you that you might not even know yourself. Not who you are, not whether you're kind, not whether you'd be a good partner, just which version of you gets people to stop scrolling. And that distinction matters, because now the system isn't simply showing people, it's testing reactions. So I decided to run one final experiment. I looked at my own profile, I had several photos, I was proud of them. Well, as proud as a worm can be. I looked at the first one, pretty good. Second one, excellent. Third one, a masterpiece. Then the system picked its favorite. I looked. Silence. Long silence. It was the worst picture. Blurry, bad lighting, My face looked like it had been photographed during an earthquake. I stared at the screen. Then I said, "That's my winning photo?" The system said nothing. Of course, it's an algorithm. It doesn't respect me. At this point, I had learned enough. The photos weren't just photos. The swipe wasn't just a swipe. The match wasn't necessarily the finish line, and the app wasn't simply a window where you looked for people. It was a system constantly learning from behavior. So I had one final question. Can I actually beat it? And the answer surprised me. No, not by becoming better at the game, because that's the trap. If I try to beat the system by swiping faster, I'm still playing its game. If I try to optimize every photo, I'm still playing its game. If I spend 3 hours trying to figure out the perfect strategy, I'm still giving it exactly what it wants. So maybe the way to beat a system isn't to become better at playing it. Maybe it's to stop letting it decide what winning means. So here's what I would actually do. First, don't let the app decide how long you're going to stay. Decide before you open it. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever works for you. Because the app has no natural reason to tell you, okay, you've had enough. Go live your life. You have to make that decision. Second, don't confuse more swipes with better chances. More profiles doesn't automatically mean better connections. Sometimes you're not searching anymore, you're just continuing. And there's a difference. Third, don't confuse a match with a relationship. A match is something the system can count. 1, 2, 3, 10. A real conversation is harder to measure. Trust is harder to measure. Chemistry is harder to measure. And love? Good luck putting that into a spreadsheet. That's probably why the most important part of dating happens after you leave the algorithm. And that's what I learned from this system. Every system has something it wants. The gym system wants consistency, the bank system wants trust, the school system wants predictable behavior, and the dating app system? It wants attention. That doesn't make it evil, it makes it a system. And the mistake we make is assuming that because a system is helping us do something, it must want exactly what we want. It doesn't. It has its own incentives. You have yours. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. And once you understand that, you don't have to fear the system. You just have to stop confusing its scoreboard with yours. So, does your dating app want you to find love? Maybe, but there's one thing it definitely wants. It wants you to come back. And once you understand that, you can finally decide when the game is over. Not when the system says, when you say. Now I'm curious, what's the longest you've ever spent swiping without actually talking to anyone? Be honest, I won't judge you. I'm a worm. I don't have a dating life either. Actually, that's probably for the best. Subscribe if you want to see what system I crawl into next, because remember, you're always inside a system, and always the system speaks.